Alright, so part 2 of the Dirge of Cerberus event within Ever Crisis has officially arrived, and this one is called Breaking Chains, and it includes arguably the coolest moment in all of Dirge, and that is the assault on Midgar. So that's what we're going to break down in today's video. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe, and if you feel oh so inclined, you can throw some of those hype points my way, because it really helps out the channel and the video a ton, and I genuinely appreciate it. So let's talk about it. Alright, so you guys are going to have to bear with me for this one because this event was incredibly long. So normally how they handle parts for Ever Crisis is you get one half 1 week, and then you get the second half the following week or the week after that. And that makes an entire part. So 2 weeks worth of content, essentially. And normally each of those sections is anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 40 if you're really pushing it. But tonight, part 2 of this event came in at close to an hour long. It's a chunky one. So part 2 opens up back at the WRO with Vincent looking over a Shelua who is currently in a coma. Now, if you remember from the previous part, Shelua essentially sacrificed herself to protect her sister Shelke and Vincent. Azul showed up, did a number on Shelua, and it's looking like it's going to take a miracle to bring her back. Now, Yuffie walks in and she's incredibly upset with Vincent, saying, "Why didn't you save her?" Vincent apologizes because he's pretty upset with himself too, kind of confused at all of the events that occurred, and then Yuffie realizes she's out of line, it's Vincent, her friend, she also apologizes. But then the wet towel of the group, Shelke, walks in and says she's a fool for doing what she did, her own sister, which is pretty messed up. This enrages Yuffie. She runs up to Shelke and proceeds to bitch slap her super hard, which was incredibly satisfying, mind you, and she yells at her and says, "You've got no right to say that," and she takes off. Vincent then walks up to Shelke and he tells her, "Look, I spoke to your sister a little while back, and she said that she was searching for something, and I asked her, what were you searching for? And she responded with, a reason to live," and he reminds Shelke, "You are your sister's reason to live," which is why she did what she did. And of course, Shelke being this cyborg kind of machine that doesn't really understand human emotions or empathy or caring for people. Again, she had that brainwashed out of her and she's now this shell that requires Mako just to function. She's confused by all of this stuff. She doesn't understand how somebody she doesn't even know would sacrifice their own life to protect another. And she asks Vincent, "Is that a concept that you even understand?" And Vincent says, "Well, I can't speak for your sister." He does say, when someone cares about someone that much, giving their life is the least that they can do. And maybe that's what makes us human. So although Dirge is a little not great, there are some really good quotes and interesting, I guess mottos you can call them, for, life and how to look at how we treat people, how we care about people, trying to do the right thing. So I like this part. I thought this was pretty cool. Shelke, still being kind of confused, says to herself, someone they care about? Again, she does not understand the concept of love, relationships, friendship, none of that. But for Vincent, while he may not fully understand this either, he does acknowledge that he has a lot of people around him that do care. But it's in this moment that Shelke is overcome with something, and she falls into Vincent's arms. And here we get a flashback of young Vincent with Lucrezia. And the whole point of this flashback is just to showcase how close Vincent and Lucrezia actually were. It's a scenario where Vincent was supposed to be bodyguarding for Lucrezia, but he fell asleep on the job. She teases him about it and then invites him to have a picnic. So it's just like a really fond memory that perhaps Lucrezia had, which we'll learn a little bit more, but Shelke is seeing it as well. And Shelke, being super confused at what she just saw, thinks that maybe she's starting to see what are called data fragments, which we'll learn about literally in a second. Now it's here that Reeve walks into the room and he's like, Vincent, you got any more of those Omega reports? It turns out the thing you gave me is incomplete and we don't have a full analysis on what Omega is capable of. To which Shelke says, wait, are you talking about Lucrezia's Omega report? And Reeve's like, duh. And she's like, hang on. She happens to have a very large quantity of a lot of the data fragments in her own neural network. Basically, her brain has the rest of Lucrezia's report. And if she can combine it with what Reeve has, they can get a much clearer image on what Omega is and what it's capable of. So she's actually offering to help, which is kind of weird. Here, Yuffie runs in, telling Reeve and Vincent, you guys got to come out here and you got to see what's going on. And what we end up seeing is Sid in a huge armada arriving to pick up Vincent, Reeve, Shelke, and Shellua. And Sid is on his brand new ship, the Shera. Now the group boards the Shera and we cut to Vincent in the med bay still looking over Shellua. Now they also happen to have Shelke there and she's got this VR headset. It almost looks like one of those hair dryers you would see at a hairdresser. And Vincent's like, what are you doing? Now prepare yourself. There's a lot of Dirge jargon coming up, but Shelke tells Vincent that what she's doing is she's in the process of performing an SND, Synaptic Net Dive. SND's nuts. And essentially what this whole thing is she's able to project an image of herself while still retaining her consciousness into a virtual reality that they call a network. To explain it, because even Vincent's confused, he's like, I don't understand a word you said. Essentially what she's doing is making herself part of the ship, so it's easier for her to speak with Vincent, Sid, the entire crew. Now, after that very long explanation, Kate Sith comes in and says, hey, that Omega report analysis is now finished and it's ready for everyone to view. And we get a really awesome cutscene with Sid, Yuffie, Vincent, Reeve going through and finding out what Omega's plan actually is. And this is kind of interesting because it reinforces the idea that when you die, you become one with the planet. You return to the life stream. It turns out the planet also has a very similar process for when it is about to die, except that involves Omega. Now, Omega emerges from the Earth and begins to suck up the life stream and all sentient life on it. It then decides to book it off of planet Earth into the cosmos on a grand adventure. Sounds cool, right? The life stream gets to take off with the planet and you get to surf the cosmos. Oh wait, the planet gets left behind and it essentially begins to die. So that's no buenos for the planet and the people on it. Now they explain further what Omega is and why it's arriving now, because Omega is essentially the last resort of the planet. When the planet is in imminent danger, it's about to die, Omega is summoned and it proceeds to do that process that we just explained. However, this process should not be happening right now. Omega shouldn't even be a thought in anyone's mind. But because of deep ground shenanigans, Omega is now being awoken much earlier. And what deep ground is doing is they're kidnapping thousands and thousands of people, slaughtering them, essentially creating a pure life stream, which heads to the planet. The planet gets that signal within the life stream of, oh no, we're in imminent danger, time to bring out Omega. We get our suitcase packed and then we take off. It's pretty reminiscent of Sephiroth's initial plan in the original FF7, girdle the planet essentially and sail the cosmos with his mama. So Deep Ground is essentially tricking the planet into thinking it's in danger when it's not. Now, the location of Omega happens to be deep under Midgar, right under Mako Reactor 0. And Deep Ground plans to use power from reactors 1 through 8 to power up Mako Reactor 0, essentially supercharging it for Omega in the life stream. After the mission briefing, Vincent goes to check on Shelke and she's pretty tired, but she lets Vincent know that she's able to see a lot of experiences that Lucrezia had, specifically moments she had with Vincent. Now, as Vincent leaves the room, he falls to the ground and transforms into chaos. Completely freaking out, scratching the wall. He's not sure what's going on. It's not until a vision of Lucrezia shows up that she's able to calm him down. Vincent doesn't know what's happening. He's assuming this is all a dream. Now up next, we get ready for the assault on Midgar, where Sid gives a very Sid-like motivational speech essentially telling the crew, if you guys die, I'm gonna bring you back and kill you myself. So in a very endearing Sid way, he tells the people, I care about you, please don't die, but in the way that Sid would do it. Now after the speech, Shelke finds Vincent and she gives him back his phone, which he left at Calm. However, she's made some modifications to it which will allow Vincent to communicate directly with Shelke, so that way she can help guide him once he actually lands in the area after the assault. And it's here that Vincent and Reeve tell her, we're counting on you, like she's becoming part of the team. And that's a very foreign concept for her. She's like, wow, I've never been counted on before. So she's slowly but surely becoming a real boy, so to speak, which is kind of cool. Again, the aspects of who Shelke is as a character, Shalua, are interesting on paper. It's just an execution. It's not set up very well within the original game, so I think maybe it's done a little bit better here in the abridged version. But again, Dirge is just kind of like a really weird story. Again, there's the people that love it. It wasn't for me back in the day, and even now I'm still like, I'm not really feeling it. But there are some interesting moments on paper that I think, do have a lot of potential. Now, up next, we get that cool cutscene. The assault commences. And assuming I don't have any issues with copyright in the music or the visuals, I'm just gonna play you guys the full cutscene because it's so cool. Now, if I do have issues with like copyright stuff on YouTube's end, then you won't see and hear the cutscene. We'll just jump to the next section of the recap, but I'll try to play it for you if I can.
シエラ号の損傷は軽微。しゃい、1000倍にして返してやるぜ。
Now, after that incredibly cool, dope cutscene, unfortunately, Vincent couldn't land in his target landing zone. He got pushed a little bit further back. But turns out this might actually be a good thing, according to Shelke, because it might give them an advantage when surprising the enemy team. Vincent proceeds further and runs into Rosso, the Crimson. And she's pretty surprised. She's like, "Oh, Vincent, you're here? I'm surprised you're still alive, and you call yourself a human." And he straight up says to her, "I'm way more human than you," which kind of seems to hit a little bit of a nerve. But she reminds Vincent that she traded her quote unquote human weakness for power a very long time ago. And it's here we get, honestly, a really adorable chibi battle sequence with Vincent and Rosso, the Crimson, which I might just play for you guys here. So, kind of silly, kind of cute. Vincent wins the fight by turning into chaos and unleashing all hell on her ass. He books it out of there, and the building proceeds to collapse and explode onto Rosso. But not before she gives Vincent a warning by saying, "Yeah, you may have beaten me, but Azul still awaits." Now we cut back to Shelke on the Shera, and she tells Vincent, "Unfortunately, our team is struggling. They're not able to shut down reactors 1 through 8 because deep ground is stopping them." However, thankfully, Vincent is in a prime position to start helping because he's right in front of the Shinra building, and she lets him know, "Okay, you gotta go into the building and find the president's entrance. That should lead you to where you need to go." However, Vincent again has another chaos episode where he falls to the ground and transforms into his chaos variant. And again, he's confused. He doesn't know why this is happening, but Shelke has to remind him, "Dude, that proto-materia that you had in your chest, that is what controlled chaos. And without it, you have no control over chaos, so he can just kind of show up whenever he wants." However, Lucrezia appears and she explains to Vincent what the heck is going on and what chaos actually is, by saying that chaos is the harbinger of anarchy. Born before the planet dies, he shall gather together all life for Omega's journey to the Sea of Stars. Which again is Deep Ground's whole plan. They stole the proto-materia, they're going to use it to wake up Omega and power it up so it can go through with its full plan. Now, it turns out this is not a ghost, this is not a vision, it's a data fragment that Shelke is projecting. Again, the whole SND's nuts situation, she can project images outwards. She's projecting this image of Lucrezia, which is able to communicate with Vincent. And Shelke is also able to feel all of those emotions too. Now, unfortunately, this reunion is cut short because back on the ship, something has gone awry in the engine room. The sirens are going off, there's red lights flashing everywhere. Sid asks Shelke, "Hey, can you go take a look for me and figure out what's going on in the engine room?" She obliges, heads to the engine room to see that it's on fire, and in the center of the room is none other than Nero. And of course, because Nero is a psychopath, he felt he had to be in this engine room to claim all of the souls of the people in it. And in a surprising turn of events, Shelke raises her weapons towards Nero, which even surprises her. And she says, "Since I've been around these people, everyone who's counting on me, I don't want to let any of them down." So again, she's starting to become human. I think the combination of being around the entire crew with Vincent, seeing what her sister did, but also feeling the emotions of Lucrezia and seeing all of those experiences and memories is really starting to turn her back into her human side. So she and Nero fight it out, but unfortunately, Nero being incredibly strong, none of her weapons are really having any effect on him, and she's unable to defeat him. And with that, we come to the end of the first half of Dirge of Cerberus Breaking Chains Part 2. And if this one was super long, I'm curious as to how long the next half is going to be, because when I think of the story of Dirge, there really isn't too much left to tell. There's the battle with Nero, the eventual battle with Weiss and Omega. There's Vincent's backstory of how he came to be, Hojo murdering him, experimenting on him, Lucrezia coming in with the proto-materia to save his life. So I'm curious to see just how they structure this out, because this was super long, packed with a lot of story stuff. So I would assume the next half, probably next week, will be maybe a little bit shorter, and then part 3 might be back to like the standard length of what these Ever Crisis events usually are. But again, with the story of Dirge, there are some interesting aspects that really work on paper. They're just not really executed all that well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this story wasn't written by Kazushige Nojima. It was written by somebody completely different. And I don't think the director had any ties to the OG FF7, although I would need to look that up to kind of further verify that. So I think that's why some of the characters don't really feel the way they should. They're also just kind of, to me, growing up when I played the game, felt like a little bit of a disconnect. Like the story didn't quite understand what the OG FF7 was. So, you know, that's not to like crap on it. I know there are people that really love Dirge, and that's cool, man. I wish I could feel that love for the game, but the fact that there are people out there that can find something positive about it and really appreciate it, again, super cool. That's what makes things really fun, is that we have different perspectives on this stuff. But some of the stuff that does work, I think, is Vincent's backstory. Figuring out how he's made and created, I think, is super cool. And of course, the assault on Midgar. As a kid, it was so cool to see Cloud and Tifa and Barrett come back and just kick butt. Although they teased the heck out of everyone by having Cloud and Rosso fight, and then we just never see the full fight. I wanted to see them fight so bad. It would have been so cool, but we just get that really big clash. I assume Cloud kicked her butt, and then she ran away to lick her wounds. That's my headcanon. But with that being said, that's the video. I'm losing my voice, if you guys can hear it. Again, please let me know in the comments down below. First off, what did you guys think of this part of part 2? Or assuming this is all of part 2, what are you thinking of the story so far? What works? What doesn't work? It would also be interesting to know, and I'll probably ask this same question at the end of part 3 whenever that hits. If you're someone who played Dirge growing up, and you liked it, now having revisited the story, are there any things that you're like, oh, I actually don't like this as much as I used to? Or vice versa, if you're someone like me who grew up playing it and didn't like it, are there things that you're going, oh, this is actually kind of cool? Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.